With Christmas around the corner, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke today about the need for vigilance as cases surge across the country. He sprinkled in some words of hope that Canada is expected to receive 125,000 doses per week of the Pfizer vaccine in January. You just heard him. But to reach our target of 6 million doses by the end of March, the process will no doubt have to be accelerated. Let's bring in the minister responsible. And joining me now is Procurement Minister Anita Anand. Minister, welcome to Power Play. Thanks so much for being there, because if there's one person that's very busy today, that would be you. But I want to start right away by asking you 125 doses per week of the Pfizer vaccine in January. And if it remains at that pace, I'm wondering, will you still meet your target for the end of March?
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Joyce. And I just want to be clear that we are talking about a procurement of 20 million Pfizer doses, and we are going to see 255,000 doses in total for this month alone. And then, as you say, 125,000 doses per week during the month of January, for a total of 500,000 doses. And yes, we are on track with Pfizer to receive the 4 million doses planned for Q1. You're right to point to the question of global demand, which I'm sure drives your comment. But of course, we are in very close touch with Pfizer and all of our suppliers, and can say that we are on track to receive the doses that we have contracted for.
If you do, and a colleague of mine asked me to ask you this question, if you start getting, if this accelerates, would the system that is in place now be able to withstand, for instance, a vaccine dump at once?
It's a very good question. One of the factors that we have ensured our vaccine suppliers of is Canada's readiness to receive vaccine doses. The Public Health Agency of Canada, as well as Major General Denis Fortin, have been in very close contact with the provinces and territories, including the POUs, or points of use, to ensure cross-Canada readiness to receive doses. And indeed, across this country this week, we have heard the stories of Canadians being vaccinated, which is indeed as a result of the very comprehensive system that PHAC and Major General Denis Fortin have been putting in place.
I don't want to underestimate for 1 second, the beautiful pictures of people getting jabbed in the arm, which usually we're all going, oh my God, there's a needle. But it was such a breath of oxygen. But, you know, I'm wondering, you know, we're looking south because we compare ourselves, obviously, to the Americans. And, you know, there is going to be a discrepancy. Obviously, they will ramp it up, the Americans, the vaccination campaign, a lot faster. Does the discrepancy between the U.S. and Canada come down to a manufacturing issue? Because obviously we don't have that kind of capacity. Would that slow down the campaign?
Well, let's be clear that the environment is highly competitive, and we are just at the beginning of the vaccination process. And so the story in each country that is vaccinating has yet to unfold. But the one thing that I am focused on in Canada, and our government is focused on, is not only the procurement of a vast portfolio of vaccines, the most vaccines per capita of any country in the world, but also the methodological, the systematic deployment of those vaccines across the country. And it is clear from this week and last week that the Public Health Agency of Canada and Major General Denis Fortin have a system in place. That rollout in a methodological way is going to define our vaccine distribution plan. And indeed, what we've done in procurement is to ensure that all the pieces of the puzzle are in place, from the end-to-end logistics system to support the Public Health Agency of Canada, to the needles and swabs and syringes to support each province and territory in the inoculation effort, as well as the procurement of 440 freezers to house these vaccines. We are ready as a country, and that is going to be part of what characterizes our vaccination effort.
So could you give us an update right now about Moderna? Is it imminent? Is it Saturday? Where do you see Health Canada approving it?
Well, the one point I want to make right off the top is that Health Canada is an independent regulatory body. I, as a minister, do not and should not have any role in that scientific process. What I can say as the procurement minister is that as soon as that regulatory approval is forthcoming, that the Moderna vaccine will ship within 24 to 48 hours. That's what we are trying to do. We are ensuring that our procurements are lined up in as much as this is possible with the approval that would be forthcoming from Health Canada.
So I'm curious about this. Could we get more than the 6 million doses of the Pfizer and, Moderna when it gets obviously approved by Health Canada? Is it possible that we would get more than those 6 million doses before the end of the first quarter? Is it possible that in the first quarter we get more than those 6 million?
Well, that's a great question, and I want to be clear that the numbers that I am providing to you and to Canadians are based on our contractual agreements. At the same time, I and my team are working with suppliers every single day to accelerate our timelines. It is a matter of making sure that the information that we provide to the Canadian public is accurate. And at the current time, we are using the number of 6 million doses in Q1 because that is what our contracts tell us. And also, we need to make sure that we have Health Canada approval in order to distribute those vaccines.
So when you say you're working tirelessly with your suppliers, does that mean that you are working tirelessly with your suppliers in order to get more of those doses in the first quarter?
If you were to speak with the suppliers themselves, they will no doubt tell you that they've heard many times from the minister and her team. We are on the phone constantly, working with our suppliers, working on the delivery schedule, ensuring that we have the best position possible for Canadians, including accelerating the timelines in as much as that is possible in a world characterized by high global demand for vaccines. That is the environment we're operating in.
I want to ask you as a last question, what's your biggest fear, your biggest nightmare? I mean, you've got a lot on your shoulders right now. What wakes you up in the middle of the night?
Well, that's a good question. I don't sleep well as a matter of practice anyway, but if I were to say one thing, it is to make sure that we are continually getting vaccines into this country for Canadians. I believe that in this pandemic, vaccines can be a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's very important for Canadians to be able to see that light and be able to have access to a vaccine if they so choose. And so by the end of September 21, as the Public Health Agency of Canada has said, all Canadians should have access to a vaccine.
Anita Anand, thank you so much for your time because I know you're pretty busy. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us and have a wonderful weekend.
You too, Joyce. Thanks for having me on. Take care.